Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm your host, Colaiacovo, and we are continuing the series of episodes focused on the topic of getting more clients using a lead magnet to help you build that list of prospects. A list of people who could go from downloading your freebie into being a paying customer. Today, I want to help you do this by kickstarting your lead magnet development. This is often where people get stuck. They don't know what to do, they don't know what to create, and frankly, sometimes it just blocks them so much that they give up and quit. But I want to help you come up with the one thing you need to have in order to see more success with your lead magnet, which really means getting more people to sign up for that lead magnet. When you have this one thing nailed down, it makes developing and creating an effective lead magnet so much easier. What that means is you're just going to have a lead magnet that will actually get you leads and clients and not end up being a waste of time. It does make a huge difference in the results that you're going to see. A few years ago, I helped a client of mine create a new lead magnet. She was launching a very specific service for a very specific niche of her clients. And that lead magnet we created spoke directly to the people. We developed it to make sure that it really hit on the number one problem these clients that she was looking to work with had. And so when she launched the lead magnet, 6 months later, we actually had 756 names who had signed up for that one lead magnet on her list alone. She wasn't running any paid ads. She was doing consistent online promotion. She was using calls to action in her blogs and newsletters. And she did a guest spot on a podcast, which really helped because the podcast was on that same niche topic. So we made sure that we were focusing and promoting that lead magnet that spoke directly to these specific people. And we promoted it in the bio in her podcast guest interview. We put it online. We shared a lot of it out there. She was telling people all about it. And it worked because we were very clear on having that one thing nailed down. And that's what can really make a difference here. In fact, the one podcast appearance she had jumped her list by 250 names in just 1 month alone. And it was because of the specificity in how the lead magnet was set up that made it so appealing to these potential clients. So when she got on the podcast, which was geared for people in that same niche, it made her offer, her lead magnet, very attractive, and people were signing up left, right, and center. And it worked well because of the work we had done on the one thing, that piece of knowledge that drives what you're going to include as content in your lead magnet. This can really make or break that effectiveness of whatever you create for a lead magnet. It's what made a huge difference in how fast her list grew from sharing the link to sign up with people in so many different places and situations. The clarity that she had made a big difference in the results that she saw. Today's episode is a lesson that I've actually shared before in my lead magnet training boot camps. But based on the last few times that I ran that event, I realized that some folks need a little more time to prepare and get the background info on this. So what I thought I would do, instead of putting that into a full session as part of the boot camp, I'm going to do that lesson right here on the podcast, which means you're going to experience some of what folks who register for this free training have learned, because I'm going to teach that lesson to you today. And of course, it goes without saying, if you want to keep some of the momentum going from today's lesson, you're very welcome to sign up for the next free lead magnet training bootcamp I have which is starting on November 18th in 2024. So it will take some of the lessons I have for you today and then one in the next episode as well, so that you can create that lead magnet that's going to attract and convert more clients for your practice or your business. So there will be a link in the show notes wherever you're listening in if you want to register for that training. Now, if you're ready to roll up your sleeves and do a little work, let's get to it here. But I'm going to stop you because most people at this point think, I'm just going to go on Canva and I'm going to start creating my lead magnet. Okay, back it up here. Your starting point is not there. You're not even close to that at this point. You've got to back up and figure out that one thing first so that you can make sure when you hit Canva or whatever you're going to use to create your lead magnet, that you're going to be creating the most effective lead magnet possible. Having this knowledge will give you exactly what you need to make it appealing and enticing. Something that people are, as I like to say, racing to get their hands on, which truly means they're just very happy to give you their name and email in order to get that lead magnet. So get your pencils out, or if you're like me, get your voice recorder out, because when I'm out walking and I'm listening to a podcast where I'm learning things, I'm almost always stopping the podcast and going to my notes app, doing a little voice recording, repeating the steps or saying what I want to do as my idea. So if you're out walking the dog or wherever you're listening in today, get ready for it. But you can always visit the show notes page that has a recap of the episode and the lessons too. Main thing is we're going to dive in here to step number 1 on how you're going to discover the one thing that will make or break your lead magnet success. And that step is you've got to identify the service and the ideal client for the lead magnet you're creating. So you have to begin by thinking about that ideal client and the program or service that you're looking to offer people who will download the lead magnet. It's all part of the process of setting up your entire lead generation system. You have to consider the end game of that funnel. You have to think about, where do you want these folks to end up? What program or service is going to help them? Frankly, we have to talk sales a little bit here and say, what do I want them to buy from me? Because when you have a lead magnet, you're really trying to make sure you align it with your paid program or service, because that has to become part of the content in the lead magnet. It has to be something that's going to speak to the ideal client, but also lead them to understand that you have a service to offer that can help them and that you could be that person to take them to the next step, whatever it might be. So that's why these lead magnets we all create have to be so much more than a cookie cutter lead magnet. What you have for a lead magnet should be very specific to your ideal client and very specific as to what you want to offer people who request the lead magnet. And when I say offer, I mean offer them a service, a paid service. Because if they wanted the lead magnet that you have and it mentions and highlights a specific service you have that helps solve something specific for that client, well, then you can plan your lead magnet to make that path happen and get the opportunity that you're looking for, which is to turn that person who signed up for your freebie into a client. But if you're just creating something random out there and have no planned calls to action, no plans of where you'd like these people to go and what you'd like them to buy from you, it really makes it a challenge to make an effective lead magnet. So you want to back up here, take the time and identify the service and the ideal client. And you do this by simply answering 2 questions. Number 1, what program or service do you want to sell to the people who would download the lead magnet you're going to create? And who is your ideal client for that program or service? So you have to lay that out there and have an idea of it. You want to make sure that you can make those kind of flow together as well. I always say that once you identify the service, once you identify the program, the product, whatever it might be, then you go into, okay, who is the ideal client? Now, a lot of us these days have created an ideal client profile. That's where we typically go into the place where we write down the traits of our ideal client. We list out things we know about them, like in the way of demographics. A lot of people will start here. Age, gender, family life, work, hobbies, habits, buying habits, locations. anything you know about them that could be useful when describing them. But now, once you have all that information collected, I just want you to throw it out the window. Okay, I'm kind of kidding here, but I'm not. I want you to realize all those demographics are really good and they're very helpful and they are part of the traditional ideal client profile. But all of that is not the be all and the end all. And it is not something, it's something you need to create an ideal client profile on paper, sure. But it's not that one thing you need to know that I want you to discover here today, because demographics are missing a huge element that you need as part of your marketing. It's missing what is driving the buying decisions for people looking at you as a possible option for someone who could help them. It's missing the reasons that they're going out there looking for the help in the first place, which is their problem, their big problem. What are they trying to do? When they go looking for help, people typically have a problem. So what is their problem? And that is step 2 in the process here. One of the best ways to really go deeper with that ideal client profile is to identify the top problem of your ideal client. This can be a challenge for a lot of people. It's one of the hardest elements of an ideal client profile to narrow down. And I know even for me, if you get me on the spot and say, okay, give me your top 2 problems of your ideal client right now, I have to sit and think about it sometimes. And you want to get to a place where that's not happening, where you're really clear on this and you can just rattle those problems off because you know it so inside and out. And that's why this is so important here. And it's one of the reasons why I host the free lead magnet training I do every year, because this is where people really get stuck. So I love blocking that time off over a couple of weeks to make sure that I can help them dive into this part of it so that they can go out there and create a lead magnet that's actually going to work for them versus creating something that you're going to try this, you're going to try that, it's not working, and you just kind of get spinning there to the point where a lot of people at some point just quit and give up or just assume that it's not working because they've done something wrong. More often than not, you're just not really focused on what are you looking to do and help that person with. That's a key part of this process here and why we want to focus on identifying this very specific problem your ideal client has, because it is the driver of what they're looking for online. It's why they're out searching for help and for somebody like you. If you're not clear on this problem, you're really going to be missing that motivation that drives somebody to go out looking for help and what kind of help they're looking for. Knowing all of this helps you know exactly what to use in your marketing content and in that lead magnet as well. To be honest, knowing inside and out your ideal client's problems can drive everything from your main marketing message, your website messaging, blog content, email subject lines, all of it. And that's how I teach folks in the Thrive Marketing Academy to start. You start by narrowing down the top 3 problems that I typically find people have. And then I pick out the most important one from there. That way you have a few different problems to consider as you're narrowing this focus and getting as specific as possible. So how do you identify those top problems? Well, this is where you have to get into the shoes of your clients, the people you work with, the potential people you work with. You have to identify how they talk about their problems, the issues they have because of their problem, and really get into the specificity of how they define it. Not how you define it, but how they do define it. And where do you get this info? If you've been listening to the podcast at all, you know I've talked before about having a words they say document. You have to get this information from their words. And you'll find that when you talk to people on consults or discovery calls, they're often telling you why they called you, what their problem was. And they will give you very specific words that they use to describe their problems. And those words are gold when it comes to marketing. And I always say they're kind of like platinum when it comes to knowing what their real problems are. This is why it's really important for any business or practice owner to be capturing these words. I talk about this more in episode 66 of the podcast, which gives you 4 easy steps to book more consults and clients. You can check that episode out from the link in the show notes. It's critical in this discovery process that you are looking for and gathering information from the words those potential or ideal clients say. We want you to get the exact words they're using to describe these problems. Once you have gathered the words from your sources, and there's lots of different ways that you can get that information. That episode that I was mentioning gives you some ideas about that. When you have that list of information, then I like you to kind of get to the point where we're going to narrow it down to one key top problem. And so what I do in this process is I like to take the words that I've gathered, whether they're from consult sheets. I use a client consult tracking sheet where I write them into that when I have discovery calls with people, and I have a little tab on it because y'all know me, I love spreadsheets. So I have a different tab on the spreadsheet where I list out other times that I might have seen people get that information, because I can go into Facebook groups and other places and you look at the conversations. You want to get this information together and then look for themes. I like to do a tally sheet. I'll pull out a blank sheet of paper. I'll look at all the words I have, and if I see a theme, I'll put it, on the top of the sheet. And then as I go through all the words and the phrases, I check off what theme was in each one. And then I typically can see from the amount of checks under each theme what was the most popular one. That helps identify those top 3 problems. That helps you see a little more clearly how people are describing them, what the problem is, and that is the one piece of knowledge you need. That's the thing that you need to create this effective lead magnet. As you move on, you're going to take this information, you're going to use that in your message in your lead magnet. You're going to use it as the lead magnet. You're going to use it in content where you do marketing to tell people you have a lead magnet, your landing page where they can sign up, how you talk to people, face to face. All of your marketing, all of your messaging, in particular about the lead magnet, should speak to that one big problem you're going to identify from these 3 that you've narrowed it down to. When you have this, it makes creating that lead magnet a lot easier. What I like to do when I have the top 3 there, I want to try and decide what's the one I really want to focus on for this lead magnet. Sometimes you might choose out of those top ones, the one that could possibly be a little easier for you to incorporate into a lead magnet. And I know you're sitting there probably thinking, well, Kathy, I don't know what kind of lead magnet I'm going to make. So how can I know how to incorporate that problem into the lead magnet? Don't I have to choose the type of lead magnet first? No, not at all. You want to have the problem first, and then you make a lead magnet that will best fit that problem, because part of your lead magnet development is thinking about that ideal client and some of their habits and how they like to consume and buy things and shop. So making the lead magnet is something we're going to dive into more in the boot camp. But right now, in order to make it and make it effective, you need to narrow down that one problem. And your problem needs to match to the service that you're going to ultimately look to offer people as part of that entire lead magnet funnel and your lead generation system. So this is why you want to understand this one thing first before you start creating the lead magnet that we are going to be doing in the boot camp. Finding that one thing, you're going to be thinking about the people you've seen, that you've talked to, your past clients, the best clients you've had, and think about those 3 problems. Look at them there and decide what one looks like the top one to use. And again, maybe the top one for you is the one that you can have the best vision of how you would put it into a lead magnet. Now that you've got that top problem, I'm going to want you to sit with it a little as we move to the next step, which is using this one piece of knowledge of the problem and creating a lead magnet with content that's going to speak to that problem and help people with that problem have a quick win, because you're going to give them some sort of solution to that problem that you're incorporating in your lead magnet. And that step, to be honest, is a little bit harder for a lot of people, especially when creativity isn't your jam. Deciding what you make as a lead magnet with this knowledge, with the information, knowing you're going to ultimately want to offer a service, knowing what problem people have, and knowing what kind of person they are. All of that's what we're going to incorporate into creating a lead magnet. And that's where you get into deciding, okay, are you going to set up a quiz? You're going to have an ebook? You're going to have a checklist? What's it going to be? There's lots of different types. I have a podcast episode on 20 different types of lead magnets that you can create. That step, we don't have time for that today. I'm going to cover it in the next episode because I want to help you think and decide what you could do with this information and how you're going to use it so that you can then move to the next step of putting that lead magnet together. That next episode is going to be coming up on Friday, November 15th. So I have a bonus episode happening here with the podcast. That one is going to give you some ideas for the content that you want to include in your lead magnets. What we're going to do here is take this one thing we've discovered, that big problem for that ideal client, and pull out the key elements that you want to include in the lead magnet that are going to speak to that problem. That episode will help you get some of the stumbling blocks out of the way when it comes to creating the best lead magnet for you, for your practice or business, so that you are seeing more success bringing in new leads and ultimately more clients. Be sure to click follow wherever you're listening into the podcast today to get notified when that episode goes live later this week. As a recap of your action steps for today, because I want you to nail down this one thing, I really want you to think about it, because it will make or break the success you have with any lead magnet. Step 1, you've got to identify the service that you want to offer and the ideal client that you want to offer that service to as it pertains to this particular lead magnet you're creating, okay? Step 2 is you need to identify the top 3 problems of that ideal client and then narrow it down to one main one that you want to focus on in the creation of your lead magnet. And this is where, remember, you've got to be really specific about this top problem and specific with the words people use. So you're probably going to have to do a little research and go back to some of your consult calls and your notes and look at what do people say? What are they telling you? What are common themes that you have? And decide on what is that top problem you want to deal with here. And then you're going to be ready to start thinking about what you would include as content in your lead magnet. And that's what we're going to cover on the next episode. So be sure to take a little time, do a bit of homework here, and pop back here on Friday, and I'll be sharing the next step in this process. If you do want to go even deeper and take this lesson today and on Friday further and get your lead magnet finished in just 2 weeks, make sure you book your seat in the free bootcamp that I have. The link for that will be in the show notes as well. I'll have the links to the other episodes that I was mentioning and resources so that if you need to do a little bit of background work, you've got that there and it's accessible for you. The episode last week was what most practice and business owners get wrong about lead magnets. That is a good one to look at, especially if you're brand new to creating a lead magnet, or if you're someone who's worked and reworked one and you've been trying to get this to work and it's just not getting signups, it's not doing what you thought it would. Listen into episode 122. That shall help you get over a couple of blocks when it comes to getting that lead magnet to effective status. And that's it for today. This is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off. Thank you for tuning in and listening to my advice and tips that are meant to help you thrive in practice or business. And if you want to make that happen, it means you've got to plan for having a consistent flow of new leads and prospects. An effective lead magnet will help make that happen for you. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.